Do you want an honest answer?
Of course.
Maybe you can consider getting a contractor or not an ID.
Budgeting has nothing to do with design.
Correct. I don't believe there's a material in the market that is perfect for a house.
Selling expensive does not equal to luxury. Take this opportunity to tell our viewers, Flyway release, can we afford it? Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the SIXiDER Show, where we ask tough questions to the designers, merchants and renovators related to the Singapore interior design industry. Joining me here today, we have Wilson from Willis Design, and he's going to share a little bit more about himself, his practice, his business, and then we'll go straight to our topic of today. Hi Wilson.
Hi Ashley, I'm Wilson. I'm actually the founder for Willis Design. So Willis Design actually established in 2016. We have been in the industry focusing on residential projects.
Okay, so what's your background? Are you a trained interior designer?
I actually graduated in Singapore Poly. I have a diploma in architect, but I didn't further to become an architect, right? So I actually moved on to become an interior designer.
Why you didn't further that study? Isn't it like the epitome of...
Do you want an honest answer?
Of course, all the time.
My honest answer is because I actually don't come from a very well-off family. So when I was doing my studies in Poly, right, I have this bad news. So I'm not financially ready to be in university, no matter be it local or overseas. Yeah. So of course my dream was to go to Australia or the overseas uni to have my architect cert, and yeah, I didn't go for it, which is luckily I joined the interior design industry, which I actually found out that actually interior design is more design driven compared to architecture industry. Because back then when I learned about architecture, it's like basically all the calculations of structural beams.
More scientific.
Correct. Especially in Singapore context, you can't really do any designing. It's more of at most HDB flats. They are more square, rectangle.
So is that something that you would still aspire to, given some changes in your financial situation? Would you be looking at exploring that?
Now it's no longer about financially stable. It's more of like maybe when I am
have more time,
and more I have an established career in ID, right? Maybe by the age of 40, 50, I can go on to be architect.
I have to shake your hand because that's literally what I want to do. Or rather, my situation was also somewhat similar. Most of us who enter into the study of design, at some point or other, you will want to look at another higher point. And of course, architecture being one of it. And I'm at the 40, 50 age right now. So this is something that I will have to think of, and whether I'll be able to fulfill that dream or not.
Understand.
But in this 30 years that I've been doing this, right, what I feel you're absolutely right with regards to interior spaces and the focus on design, and it's a very fast moving practice as opposed to architecture. But where it's lacking is probably where architecture excels in, and that's the science. And what I mean by that, right, is that if anything that's of value today, right, is that people can put a measurement to the impact a building makes. But if you were to say an interior space, what kind of impact are we talking about? It's psychological, it's aesthetic, but usually very hard to measure. So I would think that given time, if you can revisit architecture again and then you see whether the science and the aesthetics can come together, and then probably the impact would be more meaningful as well.
Actually, you bring up this point, right? What I wanted to say is my philosophy of design, right, comes from architects too. So with the architecture knowledge I have, right, I tend to design something that is, I would want to design the space, not just, aesthetic, furnitures. But I think it's more important is when you step into this certain space, right, how you feel about it. So, to be frank, the most common practice nowadays is just make the house look nice. But we don't have a deeper touch on the design aspect. Like, the space where you, maybe it's linked to your daily life, your lifestyle. When you come to the room, come to the house, you put your shoes, your slippers, anything. Yeah.
So beyond form and function, function, feelings.
Yeah. But of course, that is, we will have a lot of other issues that will come into picture when we design into that deep.
then form, function, feelings, financial.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, it's good to have this kind of conversation, right? Because I think half the time, a lot of people think that the interior designer's job is very aesthetical. You know, we are aesthetics, we are beauticians of a space, but it can be profound, it can be philosophical, and it can be scientific. And speaking of science, right, you can't escape measurements and calculations. And one of the things that we want to talk about today is essentially budget blowouts, where homeowners, quite literally most of the time, may end up paying far more than the initial quote due to hidden costs, change orders, variation orders, or in the case of meeting a not so good ID, poor planning. Yeah. Right. So one of the first questions that I want to ask you is actually, how common is it for homeowners to, or rather in your experience, is that they experience budget blowout? Say they come to you at about 30K budget, which is a typical budget, and then eventually things get thrown out. And what are the main culprits? What are the main reasons behind all this?
Okay, firstly, the chances of exceeding the budget, right, is I think it comes to the transparency of both the ID and the homeowners. Because I have faced homeowners who are maybe not comfortable to share what they actually want. So when they don't do that, right, it's kind of hard for us to know, or we are basically guessing what they want.
You're saying that they are not upfront with their real budget. So they give you a false budget because they don't want to raise the bar or give you the bar. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it could be both budget or it can be material as well. So it works actually in many aspects. The homeowners that are comfortable working with is maybe they're very upfront with me, like, you know, this is the budget they have, and then what kind of materials. They don't need to have knowledge of the materials, but they'll let me know that maybe they do cook often, and then so this will make me determine like what type of top I should be proposing for you all. Then of course, as a professional, right, I will be advising which material is better suit your lifestyle. Because in my perspective, I don't believe there's a material in the market that is perfect for a house. So it really depends on how you're going to use it. I will be the one that shave down. So I'll let you know, okay, this material and this material, which one is better? What's the pros and cons? Yeah.
The role that you play is essentially a professional. You deal with this on a daily basis, not just from the material point of view, but from a costing point of view. And also maybe in a way that you look at certain customer profile, you can predict what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And you take the extra effort to say, let's say a newlywed come to you. The potential 5-year trajectory is that they become parents. And in that situation, you already have some inkling that things will happen down the road, and they give you certain proposal that they want to do certain thing to their space, and you intervene, right? Which is what most designers do. Intervene and say, maybe you want to think about whether you want to put, instead of a walk-in wardrobe, you may want to leave that space empty because you want to put a baby cot, right? So first-time parents usually are well kanchong, they worry about these things. But all in all these things comes into play, right? It ultimately affects the budget, either higher or lower. Would you be in the kind of position whereby, you know, as a professional etiquette, you advise them and you project and you manage them, or you just basically give them what they want first to get the deal?
From my experience, I don't start off as a founder of a company, right? When I first start off, I, like what you said, I did what they want. So, but I come to realize that it's not what an ID is supposed to be doing. So I eventually somehow changed myself. So I make sure that I can design something that is suitable for them. It's not that I want them to do it this way, but I will advise them, you know, what's the consequences. Like my colleagues or my designers, right, sometimes might say that, hey, Wilson, you might think too much. But I think it's part of the ID mindset. So we should be thinking that much for the homeowner.
Because the devil's in the details.
Correct.
If you were to convince the homeowner that this is the approach you're going to take, that I'm going to value add, how would you say it succinctly? How would you, so that they don't misjudge you and that they will open up and tell you honest truth, firstly with the budget and their intention in the next 5 years?
Okay, so normally I will clarify my homeowners, right? Actually, budgeting is nothing to do with the designing.
That's an interesting thought. Budgeting has nothing to do with the designing.
Correct. I mean, to be frank, that if you are receive a quote of like a 30,000, right, and probably back in my mind, my initial quote is going to be 40, 50. I will upfront let the homeowner knows these are the items that we are doing it, right? So it can exceed to 40 to 50. I can make it 30 as well. It's going to do with the material, the size of the cabinet. So everything is so many things to be considering about. In short, I will explain to the homeowners if you want to make it 30K, can be done. It's just a matter of how we do it. Be it the materials, the type of furniture that we have.
So you manage the expectation right from the get-go.
Correct.
You explain that there is fluidity. The budget is an indicator, but it is not definite. And that anyway, during the time frame, the renovation process, from the initial discussion all the way until handover, a lot of things can happen. A lot of things can happen in the sense that they may come into extra wealth, God knows, right? Or basically something happened in their job and then they have to downgrade certain stuff.
Yeah, actually, I have a few clients that while doing renovations, right, in the middle of doing renovations, they just meekly struck a 40.
Wow.
Then, just...
Hey guys, sideway release. Can we 4D? Okay, sorry. Please continue.
The whole point I'm trying to drive to the budgeting really got nothing to do with the design. A lot of homeowners have this mentality that I spend more money equals to I get nice house. I have seen clients who spend like maybe 80-90K for the house, but the house is like, I wouldn't say it's not nice, but it's just very typical renovations. Because the money they spend is on those marble flooring. So these are the use of the materials. It's got to do with the experience and the knowledge of the ID as well.
Selling expensive does not equal to luxury.
Correct.
Yeah. It's just that you are pricing yourself high. Yeah. And there's a distinction one. How do homeowners tell that distinction? It's expensive, you're more expensive than other people. Then they say, oh, you see my company, this big, we are luxury. Do you have an opinion about this kind of IDs?
Then again, I have to bring up the how big the firm is, right? Got nothing to do with how trustable or how good the ID is. A good ID can be coming from a small firm, and doesn't mean that you're a big firm, right? You might get a trustworthy ID because there are so many IDs in the market, right? Homeowner has to do their homework as well, to study, to know who you are talking to, and then of course, again, it plays both ways. So both homeowners has to be transparent. The ID also has to be transparent. How I always tell my designers, right? Try to be as transparent as possible. 可以透明到别人看到你的心就可以了。
I mean, of course, it's easier said than done with homeowners. That being said, right, homework for homeowners. I think there's a natural inclination and tendency to assume that the designer, by default, should be professional. But out in the market, there is a ongoing bias that the designers are not professional, and they're supposed to do homework. And many times the designers who sit here, the common thing that the designers always say is that homeowners should trust us. Homeowners should trust us. And I think trust is earned. Trust is not given. There is no default that just because I sign on the dotted line, it could mean a few things. Number one, rapport is there. Number two, your contract is the cheapest. But that doesn't mean it goes to trust, no? The whole journey, you still have to show to me that you are someone that I can trust. If I'm a homeowner, I'm saying that I have trust issues. What can you do to give me assurance that all along the way you're taking care of me in the right way, in the right professional way?
I think action speaks louder than words. So my perspective, how I actually do in my company, right, is I try to always get my designers to do it more than just speaking. So do it as in what? You can maybe sketch a design. It not necessarily has to be 3D drawing. Sometimes we do hand sketching and then we present to our homeowners. So they will actually know what they're paying for. Instead of like just, a cabinet is going to cost you 2K. And then homeowners will be like, okay, so what's the design it's going to be like?
So you mean the quote and the visual guide is going to be together?
Correct. Because in fact, a quote can never be, no matter how detailed you are, right, it cannot describe how the design is going to be like.
Plus the homeowner don't know what you're writing.
Correct. To them, it's just a chunk of words. So for us, we believe in showing sketches because picture is something that everyone can understand.
So show not tell lah.
Yeah, correct. So that's our how we actually preach to our clients lah.
That's just the beginning part, which is essentially showing the visual and then the price, and then maybe if the visual is compelling enough, you can justify the price, and it may manage the expectation. Budget's going to blow, but fine. I see, I like. The next step along the way, as you're moving into maybe material selection or the execution of the project, any things that you do to manage this or not? manage the trust issue?
Based on my experience when I'm young and I first start off as ID, right, I realized that the communication is foremost important. Most of the client feel that the trust is being like, they trust you at first to sign with you, right? So as things goes, and then they might not trust you that much, often comes into communication issues. Like maybe there's no updates of what's going on site. So they are not participant in terms of the whole project. So right now, how I educate my designers, right, is try to make homeowners part of the whole project, be it feedback or be it like design. So bring them in, let them be part of it.
So what do you mean by that? Is it essentially a WhatsApp group or what?
Usually we'll create a WhatsApp group where both me and my homeowners, and some of them may even add their family in. So when they have their family in, right, it becomes a third party feedback. I will usually absorb in and then create a design for them.
It can be very noisy.
Can be lah, but you have to take it lah. I mean, I kind of like accept it as a designer daily lifestyle kind of thing.
I think it's important to, especially when you're doing homes. And I learned this from a feng shui master long time ago. She said that whenever she does a home audit, she actually call the family members in to say what you all want, what's your problem, what you're experiencing. Then the way she say it was like basically 有一个家庭会议 because you want to know what they want. Then she can properly advise and provide the solution. And I thought that, hey, actually when you're doing residential job, it should be like that also. That everybody's using a space. There are certain things that like you can tell from the husband and wife, but you don't know. Maybe they have a child that has special needs.
Correct,
and they paiseh to say, right? And during this time when you don't have that chance to understand, right, your designers creativity and collaboration would stop somewhere. It will end there. So I think that's fine, right? Definitely ideal to always have that communication. But I just question whether WhatsApp is the best tool or not. Like it can be very noisy. And I don't mean that the disturbance parts is like, how do you trace? There's so many messages and then somebody says something and then gone now. You don't know where is it already.
WhatsApp is actually it's just a secondary tool for us to communicate lah. So actually what we do is ideally is we create a PDF file where we actually compile all the details as one PDF sheet. So we'll be looking through into it whenever we have to look at the design and the theme, because as an ID there's so many things to take note of. Even though we are probably still young and energetic, right? But there are things that we tend to left out. It's a human error. So there's nothing wrong with that. So what we do is we have tried to record as much as possible in be it a PDF format or what, so it's easy for us to reference.
So it's dated as a document file inside WhatsApp, and you could actually retrieve it like notes for reference or minutes.
Correct.
So I think that's a good practice, because ultimately at the end of the day, there's a lot of noise, and I don't know, in terms of the sanity of the designer and the homeowner, there's no reference point. Sometimes it can be very messy lah. And the reason why I'm asking all that is because it is usually, again, the details that ultimately comes back to haunt us as, we never talked about this earlier, and then now you have this new requirement, and it's going to affect the budget.
And actually, I think you bring up this point, right, is also good because in terms of this PDF thing, right, help us to kind of like bring back our clients back to track. Because most of the time that we deal with clients in terms of designs, right, we might get too excited about it, and then we go
emotional roller coaster
online. I get this. I want this team. So become everything rojak together.
Yeah.
So it's our job also to kind of like to filter it and then make it bring the owner back to track. Or we're supposed to be this team. This is our initial idea, and then we should be going to this way.
Nice. It's like flying a kite. Fly the layang, don't let you anyhow fly. Yeah, there must be some restraint, because at the end of the day, you're not just controlling the project, you're also the finance controller of the project.
Right.
And every dream, every aspiration can either means zero cost or increase in cost.
Talking about this also, actually, it brings back to the point where the budgeting, right? So as an ID, as a profession, right? So we should also not stand in the perspective where we should earn more money. So my practice is to once we fix on this initial quote, right, I try my best not to have any budget exit, which is actually some of our clients are quite satisfied with it. So because nobody want to pay extra. So whenever there's some cost involved, I will give a red light and then we will just discuss about it. You shouldn't go on with this. There's an additional cost. So again, it comes back to the transparency lah. It's not like we do everything go ahead first, and after that there's some other costs involved come into picture.
Okay, Wilson, actually speaking of that, right, we have this term in the industry lah, which is change orders or variation order. And to the homeowners who don't know what that means is that basically you have a contract, and if there are things that are changing from the contract and it causes a variation. For example, you say that it's going to be in painted finish, but it's going to be later wrapped in, let's say, wallpaper. So that's a variation. And whenever there's a variation, most of the time in the ideal situation, cost changes needs to be made known to the homeowners upfront. Then you can weigh, your pros and cons and finally decide whether you want to go for it or not. But more often than other, most often the IDs will not bring it up. And they'll say, you want to do? Okay, let's do first. Then do, and then you come back and talk about the cost later, which then basically means budget blowout. What's your practice in your company? Do you address this or not?
Usually I will address it first. So I will upfront let the clients know that what's the cost involved. Because to be frank, to stand in the consumer point of view, right, there's so many costs involved. Like they could be, planning for furnitures, appliances. So to me is that they have to plan that as well. So I will, as the ID, I feel that I should let them know first.
Why do you think those IDs don't say it when it's ideal to say it earlier? You 100% agree with you, right? Of course, you tell people upfront, then they can plan, they can budget. But why do you think they don't say it upfront?
Experience could be one thing. They are often stuck in the situation where they are, some is trying to be, trying to absorb the cost themselves. But apparently, of course, sometimes they be dealing with the company. Maybe the practice is not this way. The company wants the ID to absorb instead. Yeah.
So they try to absorb the cost, but then eventually, then it becomes a budget blowout for the internal side,
Correct.
not to the homeowner. Then that's not ideal also, ma. Because if your project is not making money already, you don't have the mind, attention, nor the spirit to continue the project already.
I mean, so far the ID that I know, some of them are facing these kind of issues. So I think it's also more of the ID's job to still it's best to have a practice to bring it up to the homeowners and then discuss what is the best.
We all know some homeowners can be quite confrontational / adversarial. They see the contract as, okay, let's do a contract, right? 我要跟你讨价还价. And that basically means the earlier the ID brings things up, right, then the earlier they enter into confrontation. And you'll say, this price. No. Wilson, not this price. No, it has to be this price. If not, we lose money. No, you don't lose money. You make money here. That's why you lose a bit. It's fine. Then go into this adversarial situation. Ultimately, it may mean that the project is on hold until this decision is made. And then the ID fear this process. They rather one-shot deal at the back. Do you think this is a possibility why the IDs perform this way?
There are scenarios like that as well. But of course, how we're going to deal with it is actually depends on how the company and ID works. So for my side is we usually, again, we'll be upfront. And then how we're going to solve it and bring it up to the homeowners, right, is usually in a very soft format. In terms of like, we are not trying to, cut your title or what. So there are also give and takes. So there are certain items that we actually do. And then we also give FOC as a part of the design.
Goodwill lah.
Correct. So in design perspective, right, not everything can be quoted. As what I mean is what you quote can sometimes on site can be, you face issue with an ugly beam out of nowhere. So you gotta think of ways to beautify it. So when you beautify it, cost involved. So it's how you're going to manage this relationship between you and your clients. So 讲难听的, it will be a little bit like a boyfriend girlfriend thing.
不是难听啦，除非是你老婆不开心。
那个就是永远是我们的错了。
对啊，definitely. So there's this give and take, and that because renovation is a journey, right? It's not a destination. There are quite literally months
Correct.
Have you had cases where the ID and the homeowner, or rather you, the ID, have to deal with the customer for more than a year? Have you had customers that basically haven't TOP yet, but basically they engage you really early on and you have conversation with them for almost a year?
Actually, we do have.
Wow.
I have a client who actually signed with us before COVID.
Oh, that period.
So then COVID happens.
Yes.
And it of course, their key collection was delayed. So we basically spent almost a year going through designs. So their house will probably have like 5-6 version of designs.
Why is this so familiar? This happened to me too. Yeah, it was difficult because basically there's nothing we can do.
Correct.
The only thing we can do is explore design. And when you explore and you got time, and then the worst thing is they are in a house, right? There's nothing else but their walls. And then what they will do is they can think about the potential usage even a little bit more.
Correct.
COVID actually, I think to a certain extent, actually enhances the skill of designers. And it made homeowners a little bit more thoughtful when it comes to their home renovation.
Correct. They do bring up certain, not say criteria, but things that they need and they want. They becomes very clear about it.
The distinction is very clear, right?
Yeah, like
from which
I want this, I need this.
Yeah. So in the past, it's mostly wants. They don't even know why they want it, but they want it because it's part of the look. But then now, when they say their need, it really is birthed from a functional requirement.
Correct.
Excellent. Now let's come back to a renovation contract lah. It's something that most IDs will table, and then they say if you sign now, you get this, you get that, and then after that, it can be quite emotional and impulsive. And then after that, the IDs will go into explaining the terms. Some IDs I know, they probably come with an attachment that are 4 or 5 pages, fine print. Most of the time, these terms are very, very protective and beneficial for the ID firm, but the homeowner is not. And I guess to a certain extent, it is because the company has to function properly. This is the legal team's document. But is there a way to circumvent this in a sense that firstly, homeowner know that this is to be expected, and secondly, that they have suitable recourse if things go wrong, like budget blowout, variation and all that. In your own understanding, are there entities, associations, government bodies that can come in and intervene if things go wrong? Or rather, have you had that experience?
Fortunately, I have not had any experience with dealing with clients that has to get a third party or government authority to involve with this contract issues. So far. So I think one very important thing is about the details of the quotation as well. Because if you can be as detailed as possible, then that will make the clients to be more comfortable with what you're offering. Because again, you can be selling like a cabinet, but nobody knows actually what's the design and what's inside. So if you can be more specific, then homeowners will actually be more comfortable and more willing to pay that sum of money.
But I find it very ironical in the sense that, and this is just my personal experience, because I've seen contracts that has the attachment, they are very detailed, but when it comes to the actual itemized quotation, they are not detailed. And from what I understand about the trade, right, is most of the time there exists this not black, not white, but grey zone. This grey zone that gives them buffer. IDs will have buffer.
Okay.
So, for example, the buffer to change materials or either upgrade or downgrade. Basically, like in your case right now, you mentioned that if the situation happens that there's a need to upgrade, if I can absorb, I absorb. The absorb has got to come from somewhere, which is the buffer, right? And what happens if there are a lot of these give and takes, right? That there must be suitable amount of profitability so that they can give that. But in so doing, they usually write it in a non-detailed way. Now, I'm not for or against. I'm just saying that that's the practice. What happens if we go all out and label everything very clearly, specifying the actual material that you want to get? But that's the price rate. There's no buffer already. There's no gray zone. It is black and white. Then how? Is this to the benefit of the ID or is it to the benefit of the homeowner?
I think it's beneficial to both parties actually. Provided that you are an ID that is wanting to doing the best for the clients. Yeah, so we actually usually have it to be more specific. Like what you said, is that's either black or white. So we don't have this gray area. So even like for example, the countertop, we will specifically say that it's in what kind of profile. So like maybe single, double, or meteor joint. Yeah, so we try to be as specific as possible. Because like what you mentioned, it can be a very, very gray area. People can just say like, countertop this price. But when you comes to how you're going to fabricate that thing, be it single, double, then cost involved. Yeah.
What about certain ambiguity? Because they don't speak the jargon, and it is difficult to understand this from a layman's point of view. Let me give you an example here. Essentially, we've got a customer who came to me and they say that they have a contractor who quoted this way. You see A and then you see B. Basically, at the end of it, against the wall, both measure in 3 meter. But you can see actually there are two carpentry body. One is 2 meter in length, whereas the other is 3 meter in length. Now, if you look at it in totality, yes, 3 meter plus 3 meter. But realistically, when you build, it's just 2 cabinet, one being 2 meter, one being 3 meter. And some of the designers or contractors may argue and say that that corner is accessible for you, the homeowner, to use. Hence, there is a wastage that we will have. We need to charge you for it. Meaning, an extra meter run will be calculated into the quotation. And this is something that homeowners will not know, right?
Correct.
How would you address this? Like, will you really specify this, or is there like a process in your company that really lets the homeowner know whether there is really a wastage or not?
Okay, so I will of course bring up to the homeowners that when it comes to L shape, right? L shape is something that like what you said is different company has different ways of calculating it. So I've even seen some companies who make it as one whole sum. So a L shape is a cabinet. There are also for our company we do A plus B. We actually has the 3 meter plus 3 meter as well. So but because usually nowadays we make sure the L shape is as one cabinet.
So you have ABC. Your B is the L.
Correct.
So, and your B actually has a wastage charge.
Correct.
Okay. But if you don't build the B and it's just an A block and a B block, then it's just one measurement versus the other measurement.
So I will bring this up to our clients so that why we are charging this because of this design.
But that's exactly my point I'm trying to say. You have this practice and that's fine and good. But not everybody universally use your method. And why do you think it's like that?
I think is again what you mentioned is
the gray zone.
The gray zone, yeah, the buffer that they are trying to get. But I'm saying it's not all but it's something that we as ID also should be more transparent. I think we should let the client know that we did cater for a buffer, and then why is it there? Why is the gray area there?
On that basis, right? Is it also another common practice that in creating quotes, right? We abuse this term wastage. Wastage is commonly used as not only as buffer for contingency, but also may be abused to get that little bit more extra.
Yes, I think it's a give and take. So some ID is when you do get extra, right? But you tend to lower your cost. But I think what we should do to the market right now, right, is we should get everyone to be aligned on par. Have this thinking that what is the cost, it should be the cost. And then if you get more, you're gonna let the homeowners know that what's the issue, and then be it the material or the design, and then see we can because to be frank, there are some costs that we also give in, like what I mentioned to you.
The goodwill.
So I will usually bring up to my clients that there are certain items that worth how much that I'm actually doing it for you. Yeah.
But is there like a universal standard? Because you say that there should be some kind of an ideal alignment and all of us are on the same page when it comes to billing in a certain way, like the scenario that I just pointed out.
Yep.
But not everyone may want to have that because, again, with what you just said, there's also this thing that I must have some buffer because things happen. And the client may be adversarial and they don't want to deal with that. So if it happens, I know I can I can take care of that. But the point I'm trying to say is that there are certain things that can be done like a code of conduct. I feel that, for example, when we look at tiles, for example, we know there's going to be wastage. Not all house are, this angle or that angle. Usually sometimes got wastage one. And if there are patterns, right, to fit the patterns in a certain way, it may result in a higher wastage. So what I'm trying to say is that, and of course this is where this episode comes in, is that you can take this opportunity to tell our viewers, as a general guide, what are the things you should look out for if we're dealing with wastage here. Like for example, when we deal with tiles, right, what is the recommended guide in terms of wastage percentage? If it's very pattern, and then like Peranakan tiles, they need to follow a certain shape, right? Then it will look like they are, like a repeat pattern.
Yeah, right.
The wastage the cost will be higher. So if it's more higher, then what is the percentage you should look out for? What's fair? Because it's not 5% across the board. Right, marble will definitely cost more if you have to match the vein. Yeah, maybe you can see whether they can address.
To just have a guideline, right? Usually the wastage shouldn't be exceeding 15%.
15% as a total.
Correct. So 15% is based on design pattern tiles. It can be the way you lay it, it will have more wastage. And it can be, if let's say it's a very simple, like a 60 by 60 tiles, right? The wastage should be around probably 10 to 15, about that range.
What about things like wallpaper, where there are also patterns? Is there also a consideration on that?
For wallpaper, right, the wastage is more on the size. So it's actually just a square piece of thing. So it's the length of it, so the excess will be actually given to you. So that one is not of a big issue because wallpaper is being purchased in row. So normally you actually kind of like pay upfront and then you get these things ready. But tiles is like, I think most of the clients will bring up the mindset of like, I don't know how much you have purchased. What is 10%? What is 15%? So I think it's also, they can clarify with the tile shop actually. So tile shop did do advise what's the percentage wastage for what kind of tiles. And they will ask you what kind of pattern you're laying. So I think it's something that again, homeowner need to be proactive to know more about it.
So what you're saying is that there's actually a place to find out. So besides just asking your designer, you can also do your due diligence at the tile shop just to ask. And usually most designers will bring the homeowners to the tile shop.
Correct.
So that the level of transparency is that you can find out the cost as well as any wastages involved. I'm going to ask you something, and it happens. Sometimes we bring in designers that are not very experienced. And somehow or rather, in the process of their quoting, they overcommit and they underquote. And then this kind of budget blowout basically means that, you as management, you study the thing and say, Alan, let's call this guy Alan. Alan, you've underquoted. Now we will have to find a way to tell the homeowner. Have you had that situation? Do you have Alans in your company? And if Alan has committed this, normally what will you do? Will you absorb or will you talk to your homeowner?
I do have designers who used to be like that. So this Alan guy So
used to means that they 交了学费已经不是 Alan 了。
对 So can be achieved one. So everyone start off from low So as a company that we want to bring up designers, right? We try to, as much as possible, make them learn the lesson. So I won't get my clients to bear the full cost, but I will talk to the clients that this Alan guy is new, which they probably knew because we are being transparent here. So they probably like his design and stuff. The design and job coordination is two different things as well. So he can be a good designer, but job coordination, maybe he's not that experienced. He flung certain things. So we will have to come in and then we will talk to the clients that there's certain items that they left out. But we, as a part of our company, we do take some responsibility as well. So we see how we can work out, be it like 50-50 kind of thing. Or we give the cost, then you help us.
If the customer is very 蛮不讲理
that one is, I think, no choice but we got to absorb Yeah. Because we want to, as much as possible, portray our company to maintain our good reputation. 讲难听的，我不可能为了 let's say partition box up for the most common thing aircon piping need to box up. So like the cost is probably like less than 1,000. So I cannot be like as a company point of stand, because of $1,000 and throw my company name down the drain.
Okay, makes sense. if I were to ask you basically to create a list, right? Just to address the typical hidden costs related to renovation, right? Can you like tell us or give us a list?
To give you a list, I think is kind of like really almost impossible, because my thinking is like, if you do have the intention to have hidden costs in your quotation, it can be anything in the world.
They really want to hide, they will hide lah.
Correct. There's no way you can find. I have not seen the quote myself, but I have homeowners who bring up to me that I have met this ID, and then with the quotation, it can be like bottom cabinet without door. Like, I'm like, cannot
Then door
be
is a separate sum.
Yeah, correct. Then I say,
Door is another
it
list.
cannot be this kind of quotation. So
Or maybe we rephrase it. What about red flags? Like, if let's say the homeowner tell you that, hey, I met this other guy, he's so much cheaper, and then you say, okay, you show me the quote, and then the moment you see the quote, ding, 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 all the red flags go off. Like, what would be the red flags?
most common items that I see is probably the height of the carpentry. So because they are so often deal with HDB, right, they are not wrong to say that the carpentry standard height is probably like 2.6 meters. But when you have a different ceiling height, or when you're doing with condo, then pricing going to be double.
So you mean that they quote it as a HDB number,
Correct.
but this is a condo project, and you can tell lah, but homeowner won't know ma.
Actually, if you look closely, you can tell, because there is there's a clause in the terms and conditions stating that the height is this height. So if your carpentry is going to be higher than that, additional costs will involve. But of course, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but there are some companies that I see, they are really very transparent. So they upfront tell that there will be costs involved. So they let you know what's the unit price. Like if your height exceeds this 2.6, right, then per foot run is going to be like maybe $100 more.
But if the ID met the homeowner and then they are furnishing a quotation, I will assume that that's the second time meeting, which is to say that they would know that this is a condo customer. Isn't it just laziness on their part that they have to write like that? Like, why even bother, right? Just straight away count a condo height ma.
Okay, then I would say that this is probably the ID industry, right? Because we are so low tech, right? We are still dealing with like Excel and stuff. So
Cut and paste.
we just call it cut and paste.
Oh my god.
So I have even seen quotation like, it's really cut and paste, but the additional, they know that it's higher than the usual HDB height. So the additional is the second item.
Okay.
So you have another item for exceeding the height, and this is the amount.
I think what Wilson is saying is that the advice is, if you see the quotations and the quotation indicates the height, you can make a note of it. And if there's no second item that supplements the extra height, then you have better, it's a red flag lah. And then ultimately you have to question the designer and say, hey, the provision for an increment in height lah. Yeah. Correct. Any other red flags?
Usually red flags actually a more general guide is it happens in all the major items. Like a house major item will be like carpentry, tiling. So tiling will be like, things to take note will be whether the tiles that they offer you is a meter joint. Because if not, a standard practice will be just finish it with a PVC capping kind of thing.
Yeah.
If let's say you really don't mind PVC capping, then you can, it's totally fine lah. Yeah. So tiling, and then of course there will be again the partition box that I'm going to bring up. It can be really based on site. So sometimes when you run the aircon trunking and it's going to cause an eyesore to you, right? Then you probably have to add on, have a partition box up, etc.
What happens if there are things like PC sum, provisional cost, or lump sum? Are they red flags? That's my first question. And under what situations they are not red flags?
You should be getting lump sum for hacking. In short, right, the more you hack in the house, right, in a single project, the more worth it is. Because
economies of scale.
Because they are one trip down and then they hack everything is there. They are paid to destroy things lah.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be individual quote. So I have seen quotes that are, they list per item in hacking. So actually the sum ends up to be over 10K.
So they will label out all the things that needs to be done, but ultimately the price is a lump sum.
No, for that case, right, is they list every single item and they have single price tag to it.
So then becomes bloated lah, extremely inflated.
To me, is hacking supposed to be a package thing. So even to be frank, the cost price that we receive is also
in package.
In package.
Lump sum.
Correct. So when they are there, they hack more, they will give you, like a special price kind of thing.
So for lump sum, is only applicable for things that has economies of scale. They go for one trip, they finish it off.
Correct.
You ask a bit more, it's within there.
Correct.
But nothing else should be under lump sum.
Correct.
Carpentry should not be lump sum.
Definitely not.
Painting,
Painting can be yes and no.
depending on colors.
No, depends on the type of paint that you want. Because nowadays, there's lime wash, there are some special effect paints that got involved, right? So when this comes to picture, the price becomes two different price tag.
So you will have breakdown and different pricing to justify.
Correct. But of course, painting is still painting. It's going to be one price tag to it, based on your property size and then also the type of paint that you use. There's odorless, there's the most common is a Vinyl 5000. Yeah.
PC sum is something that's usually used in commercial project as well as larger architectural project. And it's basically like a contingency fund. If you don't use, you don't touch. But if you do use, then it's from there.
Correct.
And in my time when I first entered the industry, many projects, especially on the electrical side, usually have PC sum. And they put it in so that the homeowners can have a gauge that typically a 4-room flat or 5-room flat would spend about this much, but we haven't gone to the nitty-gritty of the design. And so the PC sum, or rather the electrical sum, cannot be derived. But we put that sum there. Is it still in practice today? And do you think that people got used or abused?
I have seen there are still some companies still practice this in the market, and again, there's no right or wrong. But for myself, my company, we don't practice that because, to be frank, our designs can be from the initial meetup till the day before we start work, right? It can be changing a lot of times.
It's very fluid,
Correct. So we can't really give you a PC price. So we can only maybe help you find out per unit one socket is how much roughly going to cost you, rewire a rough gauge. So when we will usually arrange a meetup with electrician on site just right before we start the work lah. So at least we have the 3D in mind, we have the design there ready, so the electrician can better quote you as well.
I see. There are renovation tools online, especially from SIXiDER as well. But these renovation tools usually pertains to online calculation with regards to renovation. And how useful do you think this helps homeowners in budgeting and forecasting? Do you think it's accurate? Do you think it's just a waste of time, marketing fluff?
I have been to a number of platforms and then I have seen a number of EQuotes. So the EQuote offer to my clients, right, to be very frank, by far, SIXiDER is the most accurate and close to what the client is expecting. Actually, it helps me in the way that when I talk to my clients, right, they can really get what they want and versus the price that they get. So there is actually easier for us ID, right, to hand over and achieving what the clients want for the dream home.
So in that sense, the expectation is managed right from the very get-go.
Correct.
Even if they have an unrealistic budget, when the EQuote comes out and tells them otherwise, they can, or rather they 心里有数啦. They know that my budget is really not enough.
Correct.
And maybe this will help them to either seek financial help from family members or maybe even take renovation loan or personal loan to cover the thing. Because we all know really to make a house a home, finding a renovator, finding designer, it's just one part. The others will be finding your soft furnishing, your furniture. The home only becomes a home once the homeowner goes in and dress it up. There's a lot of money involved. And there are also situations where homeowners sometimes think that their renovation budget includes the furnishing as well. Do you have that? As in, homeowners say, 30,000 is everything, includes sofa, includes toilet accessories, sanitary items. Because I think they see that as part of renovation, right?
I have two clients that actually bring up these issues. So or in fact, there are a very small number of clients who prefer me to actually include everything into my quote. So I do explain them to them very nicely lah. So if you really trust me, I can, but I cannot ensure you that the price is the cheapest.
You
Designers,
put it in your markup.
No, it's not about marking up. It's about I can give the cost like by buying a toilet bowl. But if you really ask me, I don't know what you want. But you ask me to recommend, I might be getting you very expensive
A Toto,
toilet
washlet.
bowl. Then you're like, oh wow, 为什么这样贵? So it's not fair to me lah. So normally I will still prefer clients to I can bring them to have a look. I can advise, but not to put into my quotation lah.
The thing about renovation contract is that it really doesn't cover fixtures and soft furnishings.
Correct.
In short, if you see a quotation and it really blows your budget, you have to also consider your soft furnishing part. I mean, the buck doesn't end here lah. There are other things that you need to look at it to complete the picture, right? Otherwise, you probably have to look at conducting the reno in phases, because what matters first, your flooring, your ceiling, or the electrical, and then build as you go along.
I think to add on is also if let's say ID in Singapore, right, we can do like advise homeowners better in terms of budgeting, right? It will be definitely beneficial to our clients lah. So most common questions the clients have is like appliances, how much they're going to spend. They actually have zero clues. So even like oven, stove, hood, so all these are actually question marks. So what I'm now practicing for my company, so I get my designers to understand more about all these items, and then don't have to be exact. We don't have to go into detail, but at least we know the rough figure that we are looking at, so our homeowners have a rough idea. But of course, we don't really give a very distinct direction that you must get this, you must get that, because there are clients that we also faced before. I recommend you a China-made toilet bowl. You'll be like, hey, 为什么你介绍我这个东西
Insulted.
你这样看不起我 it's really based on what the client's expectation.
But isn't it something that it's a given to a certain way? You want to assure that things are built in a certain way, or at least at the very least it's homogeneous lah, right? Your tiles are China-made. This thing is purchased from Taobao. Your furniture is decided, a toilet bowl made in China, nothing wrong with it. So my point I'm trying to say is that I think your consideration is you have to make sure that the budget is there. Even though furnishing is not part of your contract, you still want to play a part lah, and guide your homeowner as you go along. And as long as it's within the look, the tactile quality is still there. It is not a very high-end luxury item, but then it is proportionate to the space that you design ma. Very funny, right? You have like a $20,000 toilet bowl, but the rest of your renovation is $30,000. It's not proportionate.
So actually, this is something very funny. So I remember a case of mine, or I'm doing a project. So because of the furnishing budget exceeds, right? Because like maybe like a 20K toilet bowl, for example. And I also have the initial thought that it's not really part of my issue or problem. So because you choose to have this. But when homeowners actually choose to buy expensive appliances, right, it actually eats into my budget. So it becomes my problem end of the day. So in conclusion, I have to somehow help them to adjust to so-called make do that you can have your 20K toilet bowl, yet you can have your renovation done. So it becomes my part of my job to also to advise.
To add on to that, I think there's this disjointed perception by homeowners sometimes that they feel that work by renovation, work by designers, work by local renovators and all that has a certain market value. And it is discountable. It is also not as high value, but they will spend more on certain things that are a bit more established. Like they know they visited hotel bathrooms in Japan, so they know they want to bring it home. This is something that I'll pay for. But then when you ask me to pay the equivalent to your renovation, don't think it's worth it. I mean, do you see that that's something that the designers needs to earn that trust? Yeah, we are not Toto, we are not self-cleaning toilet bowl, but we are designers. How do we earn that?
It works both ways. So as ID, right, we should be also again earn trust by doing what we're supposed to do, showing design, and then in return we just hope the clients or homeowners will be appreciative of the beauty of design. Because in fact some homeowners that not always meet lah, but I met some that they really don't, not say don't appreciate, but they don't, to them design is just something that is aesthetic long. They can do without it. So when I met those clients, right, I will let them know that, to be frank, now we don't talk. I'm not the ID. I'm just as a friend, or a new guy that you maybe probably meet on street lah. So as that point of view, I would ask you to go get into, maybe you can consider getting a contractor, or not an ID, because you're paying more compared to paying contractor ma. So when you're paying more, you would our job is to design the space for you, design something that's suitable for your lifestyle. Yeah. So they are more towards of like, they find ID because my friends are getting ID, and then they told me to find ID, and they expect the ID to be like a contractor. Yeah. But we are actually doing different job. So contractor is more of like there might be coordination works, and more like you give a task and they will complete a task for you. But for us, we are something even deeper. We design the space. So it's something that I think Singaporeans or homeowners should get should appreciate the beauty of designing. Yeah.
But I think the point here is that the homeowners don't even know where to look and understand that there is a distinction. And I say this because I've seen far too often that this is not really properly addressed. We've got homeowners who probably are decked out in nice designer clothes. They bought a nice place in town, drive a nice car. But when it comes to the renovation, they say, oh, this is not the market rate. Like, how would they know the market rate in the first place? But they say it's not the market rate. And then when it comes to accessorizing and buying furnishing, they are going for brands. And there, my question would be, why is the Singaporean designer not as branded as your branded car, or your branded house, or your branded furnishing? Why is the designer not able to, close that gap and give you that? And I think it is also the storytelling that has to do with the ID firm lah. I mean, in truth be told, no homeowner would know that you are this good. And a lot of times many designers may choose to say, my work speaks for itself. But your work don't speak for itself until you finish the work. So that journey, right, there's a lot of maintenance that's involved. All I'm saying is that it's not right and wrong. But I'm saying, yes, I think both you and I are saying that we recognize that there's a disparity, but the disparity needs to have some kind of actionable action, which is one of it. And I think if it's a brand, then do some branding. Let's address that together. And the other thing is, of course, the process of renovation is not very transparent. They won't know the difference. If this is a market rate, why are you more expensive? Oh, because there are due processes. For example, a carpentry won't be a carpentry without our set of drawing. Why we have a set of drawing? Because we are fully transparent. We're telling you not just the materials, but we're showing you the dimensions so that you can fit your tie to your underwear, to your socks, and nothing will be sticking out. It'll be nice and neat. And that process requires time, effort, and there has got to be a cost for that. But this literature is not there. A lot of them don't know that drawings are given one, it's included in the service one. And today we are still seeing ID firms or certain practices that go onto a job site. Drawings are drawn on wall.
Yeah, right.
The worst thing is the painter coming the next day. Everything that's discussed is gone. There's no transferable set of information.
So we need the PDF in the WhatsApp.
Yeah. No, but so the whole point about this hoo-ha, right, is really about like practices like you guys and how transparent, transferable in terms of information sharing. You mentioned communication. I think a large part of budget blowout really has to do with communication. And also at the same time trying to earn the respect and trust via the things that you do on a daily basis so that they'll be willing to pay when budget blows out.
I think client base, to be frank, there is always 50-50. It's like what I mentioned so far. I have also met clients who really have full trust in me. Like they basically tell me, okay, I have this budget, just design for me. And then of course they do have, definitely I will want to have their feedbacks for designs. But why I say trust, right, is to the extent like, when it comes to carpentry, right, you just let me, I want to put this thing, this item. So just design for me. So actually, it's something that I feel that we as an ID should be striving to achieve throughout the whole industry lah. I think it's more you will feel more accomplished as an ID compared to you just do for the sake of doing, getting a cabinet, and then ask the owner what do you need. Oh, you need this one. Okay, I just do this one. It's more like
adding value lah.
Correct,
It's not just you give me a question, I give you an answer. It's in between. When I give you the answer, can I give you more answers? Can I give you alternatives?
So we often offer options to our clients, not just like you got no choice but to accept this. But of course, option A comes with these consequences. Option B comes with this. So we got to decide together as one, not like I throw into this dilemma, like you're going to make a decision ASAP. I'm going to pause the work. I think it works both ways. I mean, as ID, we also want to have we want to complete the project not say as fast as possible, but the more we prolong, it eats into our cost as well. So it has always been, this is something that won't be changed. So, but yeah, often the communication is the cause of everything.
I see. Yeah. Great. I think these are good fundamentals, aspirationally speaking as well as fundamentally speaking, because at the end of the day, renovation is really a collaboration between the homeowner as well as the designer, and it is not simply transactional. It is progressional. You go into a renovation, usually takes months, and in between there's a lot of communication, either miscom or aligned communication, but ultimately the new communication transparency is there. And ultimately at the end of the day, how professional and how inspired you are cuts both ways. You can be on your own, but like the owner do their part, right, you will probably be compelled to do a better job for them as well. Right. Yeah. So with that, right, we're going to move on to the last part of our show. As our tradition, the designer or the merchant that came before you left an interesting question for you to share a little bit about yourself in a personal way, okay, right? So that people can understand more about you, not just as a designer, but as an individual, and your thoughts and your wisdom. Now, this is a very complex, very difficult question to ask, because this one always appears in psychological magazines. Now, you see this image, right? What we have here is basically a railway track where there is a trolley or rather a train, and you, as an individual next to the lever, can decide the fate or the direction of where this train is going. To the left, you have one person tied to the railway track, and that person is actually your loved one. And then on the right-hand side, right, is actually the 100 people that you don't know. And you have to make a decision. Save one or save the 100? Which one will you choose?
Wow. I would save the 100%.
Why?
I believe my loved one will understand me why I would save 100 lives than, sacrificing her lah. Yeah. So, I think if let's say I kill the 100%, right, I will not be able to live happily throughout my rest of my life.
The guilt will also kill you.
Correct. So I will be living in misery lah, basically.
So you and that loved one will live with that guilt forever, to a certain extent.
Correct. So I would rather us be the one that, I will kill her, then I will kill myself also.
Her. I think fair enough lah. Usually 90, I mean, I've researched this, 90% of the people would 大义灭亲 they will basically look at the bigger picture and I think it's a way that the audience can understand you. There's no right and wrong to this, right. And I think we all have that decision to make, and especially since you're a businessman, right? There are times when you have to make the decision that's for the greater good of the company, and you put aside your time with your family, you put aside your time with your loved one, because you want to give back to your family. It's about paying the price now and playing later, as opposed to do something very responsible and enjoy your life now and probably end up paying the price much later. So I agree with you to a certain extent. Okay, we've come to the end of this episode of the SIXiDER Show. I've had an enjoyable time talking to a like-minded designer like Wilson, who also have aspirations to be an architect one day, hopefully, when he reaches 40 or 50. Maybe in the next few years, he decides to do it, then we can be classmates. But till then, we'll still have a job to run. Me as SIXiDER and Wilson as the founder of Willis. And we'll see you guys next week in the next episode of the SIXiDER Show. And hope that you enjoy this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.